I wanted to make a follow-up to my own submission. If you haven't seen that, I'm going to post it in the comments down below. And if enough people are interested, I might even do a reading of it, basically. Some people have reached out who have read it that I've sent it to, or have had it sent to them from other professionals that they work with or other peak bodies. Thank you to everyone who's passed it on to other people or who have given me a kind message about reading it. It has meant a lot to me. It's been a lot of work, and there's a lot of work left to do. And that's actually what I want to speak about in this video today. Part of the terms of reference for the inquiry, but also just so we know what we're going to be doing moving forward, was identifying areas of research. These are the 6 areas of research that I think are the most important for managing ADHD in Australia moving forward. Number 1. Investigating the prevalence of ADHD in different regions of Australia, as well as disparities in diagnosis and treatment across different socioeconomic and cultural groups. It's hard to develop a management plan for something you haven't been able to assess or even know how much there is of out there or where it is. Number 2, examining the impact of ADHD on the Australian education system, including the experience of children with ADHD in the classroom and the effectiveness of current support systems. I don't think that I'm speaking out of class when I say that current education systems in Australia are pretty abhorrent towards children with ADHD and other neurodevelopmental disorders. There are certain schools and education departments that are working a bit harder than others to be accessible to children with a disability, but there is, I think, underestimation from people who aren't advocates in the area or pediatricians or specialists in child development or psychiatry who have dictated the way that education departments work. I'd like a paper to finally point to show people who think that isolating and excluding children from education is a good thing, to show them exactly how wrong they are. Number 3, identifying barriers to accessing ADHD diagnosis and treatment in remote and rural areas of Australia, and developing and evaluating evaluating telehealth options to improve access to care. Internalized judgment. Access to care for ADHD, to pretty much any health issue outside of a CBD, especially up here in rural and remote Aboriginal communities, anywhere in this country, is practically impossible. And if we can direct any of that towards helping pass the Barrier line, I don't know what the rest of Australia would call the Barrier line. I don't really know another way to broach that, because that's what it feels like sometimes. But we're all in this together. Anything that will help bring any kind of help to any of those places is worth knowing. Number 4, investigating the economic impact of ADHD in Australia, including the cost of healthcare, lost productivity, and other indirect costs. I want to start this by acknowledging the Deloitte Access ADHD Economic Impact in Australia study that was released a few years ago. I refer to it myself frequently when I'm advocating for clients. I did actually reference it in my own submission. It's a fascinating document, done very well. I encourage you to go and read it if you haven't. The only reason I point that out is this. I remember a few years ago when I was contacted by a certified ally of people with ADHD to sort of expand upon some of the stuff that I had touched on, and one of which was economic impact of ADHD. This ally had been labouring under the assumption that I was only referring to criminal justice spending. Now, I wasn't, but there is a view and a narrative that surrounds ADHD in that any money spent on it is money spent on trying to correct people's behaviour or welfare spending. That study definitely shows that the economic impact of ADHD far outweighs any kind of health spending or criminal justice spending particularly, or even education spending. And it speaks to the point in my own submission about ADHD doesn't stop at the water's edge. There's no part of Australian society that isn't touched on by ADHD or isn't informed by ADHD in some way. I don't think. That flows on into number 5. Examining the experiences of individuals with ADHD in the Australian workforce, including the challenges they face and the effectiveness of current workplace accommodations and support systems. Now, I can't speak from personal experience, but I have heard and I have been told, and there are many surveys and many support forums out there of people with ADHD begging other people who have joined the forum or asked the question about, should I tell my workplace I have ADHD? And resoundingly, the answer is generally no. And that's a really horrifying thing to think about. So many people who have notified their workplace that they have it have then experienced some kind of non-goodness. Whatever that non-goodness may be, I think is important to find out. And that also flows on into number 6. Identifying effective strategies for raising awareness about ADHD in Australia, including the development and evaluation of a national awareness campaign and the involvement of key stakeholders such as healthcare providers, educators and employers. People with ADHD, people with kids with ADHD, people with ADHD with kids with ADHD, they know how to speak about what they do with, and it might take them some time, but they get their head around what it means for them and how they want to be supported. Healthcare providers, educators and employers outside of that space don't yet. But I think figuring out how to put it to them in a way that makes them feel like a part of the solution rather than part of the problem is really important. Because this will take a collaborative effort, but I think it might be just the best bang for the buck awareness campaign Australia's ever been a part of. So yeah, that's where I think. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or if you've got any other ideas about what would be good to see. And stay tuned for more updates from the inquiry as they start to trickle out. Thanks for coming. I'll see you around the traps.